40 years ago, in 1985, 4 activists from the Eastern Cape were intercepted by security police at a roadblock near Port Elizabeth. Unaware that 2 members of their group, Matthew Goniwe and Ford Kalata, had been marked for assassination. Known as the Craddock Four, Goniwe, Kalata, Sparrow Mkhonto, and Sicelo Mhlawuli were never seen alive again. Their death signified a crucial turning point in the struggle against apartheid. On the day of their funeral, President P.W. Botha declared a national state of emergency that lasted several years. The targeted killings of Goniwe, Kalata, Mkhonto, and Mhlawuli by the Civil Cooperation Bureau, a clandestine hit squad of the apartheid regime, remained shrouded in speculation for years. This period saw an escalation in repression and unrest as the apartheid state deteriorated further. Although the South African government denied any involvement in the murders, an anonymous source sent a copy of the signal message form issuing their death warrant to Major General Bantu Holomisa, Transkei's Minister of Defense. He promptly forwarded this chilling document to the Director of Military Intelligence in Transkei, shedding light on how state-sanctioned murder was part of the apartheid regime's desperate tactics to suppress dissent. On June 27, 1985, Goniwe, Kalata, Mkhonto, and Mhlawuli were detained by security police just outside Gqeberha. Rumors circulated that Goniwe and Kalata were on a secret police hit list due to their active roles in the anti-apartheid struggle within Craddock. Tragically, the South African security police murdered them and subsequently burned their bodies. Matthew Goniwe was born on December 27, 1947 in Lingelihle Township near Craddock in the Eastern Cape. He was the youngest of 8 children raised by his parents, David and Elizabeth, who worked as farm laborers. Goniwe attended St. James Primary School and then progressed to Sam Xalile Secondary School, where he earned his junior certificate. After completing his matriculation at Hilltown, Goniwe studied for a teaching diploma at the University of Fort Hare, majoring in mathematics and science. It was during his time at Fort Hare that he became involved in student politics. Upon graduation, he returned to Sam Xalile Secondary as a mathematics and science teacher, quickly gaining popularity among students. In 1972, Goniwe, along with fellow teacher John Hlekani, founded a school in Nqanduli, Transkei, which later became known as Hlomisa High School. He married Nyameka in 1975, who later became a social worker, and together they had 2 children, Nobuzwe and Nyaniso. Goniwe's elder brother, Jacques Goniwe, famously burnt his passbook in Craddock as part of the ANC's Defiance campaign in the 1950s and later joined the ANC in Maseru, where he was tragically killed by Rhodesian security forces during the Wankis Belilo campaign. While living in the Transkei, Goniwe joined a reading group that studied Marxism and communism. This group was eventually infiltrated by a Fort Hare student, leading to Goniwe's arrest on July 19, 1976, along with 4 others, including the Jebeza brothers. He was charged under the Suppression of Communism Act. After a controversial trial lasting a year in the Transkei, Goniwe and 4 others were convicted, with 4 receiving 4-year prison sentences. During his imprisonment, Goniwe studied and earned a BA degree through UNISA, majoring in political science and education. Upon his release from Umtata prison on August 31, 1981, Goniwe was sent back to Craddock by the security police. On March 1, 1982, he took on the role of acting principal at Ngweba High and later became the principal of Sam Xalile Junior Secondary School in Craddock, where he worked alongside colleague Ford Kalata to restore discipline at the school. In 1983, Goniwe was elected the first chairperson of the Craddock Youth Association, with Ford Kalata as secretary. One of their initial efforts was to oppose an unjust rental system proposed by the Eastern Cape Administration Board, which led to the establishment of a civic association in Lingelihle, with Goniwe as chairperson. In May 1983, he organized a mass meeting to strategize the community's response to high rents, resulting in the formation of the Cradock Residents Association, CRADORA. Through persistent efforts, CRADORA successfully pressured for reduced rents. Following the launch of the United Democratic Front on August 20, 1983, CRADORA became affiliated with this broad coalition opposing apartheid. On October 18, 1983, the security police, looking to suppress Goniwe's influence, pressured the Department of Education to transfer him to a school in Graaff-Reinet. Goniwe refused this transfer and applied for a teaching position at a school in Cradock, which was denied. On November 29, 1983, the Department of Education sent him a telegram confirming his transfer to Graaff-Reinet starting January 1, 1984. A community meeting, attended by around 2,000 people, opposed this transfer. When Goniwe did not report for work in Graaff-Reinet, the Department of Education claimed he had dismissed himself, leading to his official firing on January 27, 1984. This incident triggered a school boycott on February 3rd that expanded throughout Cradock and beyond, lasting for 15 months. By March 11, 1984, over 4,200 students had joined the boycott, supported by CRADORA, CRADOYA, UDF, and other organizations from Port Elizabeth. On March 6, 1984, Matthew Goniwe was appointed as the rural organizer for the United Democratic Front. Concurrently, he came under surveillance from the Cradock Security Police, led by Major Eric Finter. His phone was tapped. An electronic listening device, known locally as a Damati, was secretly installed in his home. Just few weeks later, on March 23rd, local magistrates banned all CRADORA and CRADOYA meetings, triggering community unrest as residents responded by throwing stones at the authorities, who quickly suppressed the riots. On March 19, during a State Security Council meeting, former Finance Minister Barend du Plessis suggested removing Goniwe, stating, "In Cradock, there are 2 ex-teachers who are acting as agitators. It would be good if they could be removed." 2 days later, Major Craig Williamson, head of Security Police Intelligence, sent a subordinate, Jacobus Jan Hendrik van Jaarsveld, to Cradock to assess the feasibility of taking out Goniwe. Former President F.W. de Klerk later recalled that Goniwe was to be redeployed, while Van Jaarsveld would later testify about this at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. On March 30, the security police executed a nighttime operation, arresting Goniwe, Fort Galata, and Goniwe's cousin, Mbulelo Goniwe. This came just 2 days after the detention of Fezile Donald Madoda Jacobs, the head prefect of the local high school. All were held under Section 28 of the Internal Security Act. The following day, Minister of Law and Order, Louis Lagrange, announced a ban on all gatherings for 3 months. Tensions in the community escalated, leading to violent riots, which included petrol bombings and attacks on the homes of community councillors. Student protests demanding Goniwe's reinstatement began on April 15. By May 27, police and the South African Defence Force caught in North Lingelihle Township, searching for suspects involved in public violence. In June 1984, Goniwe, Fort Galata, Mbulelo Goniwe, and Madoda Jacobs remained in detention and were classified as potential threats under the Internal Security Act. After police tear-gassed the township on June 15, the community organized a boycott against white-owned shops, coinciding with the anniversary of the Soweto uprising on June 16. The police responded with force, resulting in numerous arrests related to arson and unlawful assembly. In December, Goniwe called for a Black Christmas, urging the community to refrain from purchasing liquor or food from white-owned businesses, which angered the white business community. In January 1985, he hosted visits from Danny O'Grady of the US Embassy and Sheena Duncan of the Black Sash and traveled to Cape Town to meet Senator Edward Kennedy. At the funeral of Thosi Skweyiya, who had been shot during the riots on February 3rd, Goniwe and others called for an end to the violence. Meanwhile, Kradora engaged in several discussions with the Department of Education and Training to seek Goniwe's reinstatement. Initially, a senior Department of Education and Training official, De Beer, deemed the case closed, but after a community delegation visited Cape Town, the Department of Education and Training opened the case again and agreed to meet Goniwe in Cradock. He emphasized the urgent need for children to return to school. After a prolonged absence of 15 months, with De Beer's assistance, a public meeting was scheduled for March 29, 1985, despite a prior ban on gatherings taking place on Easter Monday. In May, as Goniwe's reinstatement seemed imminent, the army and SAP raided Lingelihle, sealing off the area. Helicopters dropped pamphlets accusing Kradora of ties to violence, communism, and terrorism. Through loudspeakers, Goniwe was minimized, with warnings that the ANC was among them, urging the people to stay indoors. 10 hours later, the operation concluded with a message thanking the residents for their compliance. Goniwe received numerous death threats, including alarming phone calls and a sinister bottle containing a note depicting a gallows, with Goniwe labeled on the cutout of a figure hanging from it, alongside a dead grasshopper. Although the security forces suspected his allegiance to the ANC, they were unaware that Goniwe was actually the chairman of the ANC's Underground Military Working Committee in the Karoo. Lingelihle was one of the first townships to establish street committees guided by the organization Kradora. The 17,000 residents were divided into 7 zones, with around 40 activists assigned to each area. These activists held meetings to elect officials, allowing every household to vote for their street representatives. This initiative became known as the G-Plan, or Goniwe's Plan. By late 1984, both Cradock and Lingelihle, areas long associated with resistance and struggle, were recognized by the United Democratic Front as models of community organization. The community structures set up by Matthew Goniwe were replicated in other townships. In his new role as rural organizer for the UDF, Goniwe expanded the establishment of street committees to Adelaide, Kirkwood, and Kenton-on-Sea. Goniwe was instrumental in transforming the ANC's underground political structures into military formations. In 1980, activist Arnold Stoffel assisted Goniwe in creating an underground ANC area political committee for the Karoo region. These early Cradock structures were linked via Stoffel to Chris Hani, the chief of the ANC's underground operation in Lesotho, who later became the leader of the ANC's military wing, Umkhonto weSizwe. By 1982, Goniwe had enough organizational cells in his area to report directly to Hani. By 1983, he was organizing efforts in Graaff-Reinet and expanding throughout the Eastern Cape. Goniwe was viewed as a significant threat in the Eastern Cape, often labeled a terrorist. His file contained at least 6 volumes, securely stored after his death. Each volume included a SEP-5 diary containing observations made by field workers. In 1987, his file was referenced during the Delmas trial, but later went missing. On Thursday, May 23, 1985, a crucial meeting took place. The Deputy Minister of Law and Order, Adrian Vlok, visited Port Elizabeth and Cradock, coinciding with the meeting of the Eastern Province Joint Management Committee regarding the Goniwe matter, chaired by local military commander Brigadier C.P. Joffie van der Westhuizen and attended by Regional Security Police Chief Harold Snyman. The committee decided that Goniwe had effectively dismissed himself, although this decision was not supported by the Department of Education and Training's Regional Director. Following the meeting, Vlok contacted the Minister of Cooperative Development and Education in Cape Town to delay Goniwe's reappointment until Law and Order Minister Louis Lagrange could discuss the issue at an upcoming cabinet meeting in Pretoria. Additionally, Brigadier van der Westhuizen sent a communication to the SSC in Pretoria urging the committee to urgently consider a recommendation that Goniwe and his associate Galada should never ever be reappointed to any position in the Department of Education and Training under any circumstance. The next day, Friday, May 24, Department of Education and Training official Jaap Strydom and Department of Education and Training Deputy Director of Community Communications Johannes Vermaak met with Goniwe at the Masonic Hotel in Cradock to discuss his future. Strydom informed him that only the minister had the authority to reappoint him. In early June 1985, Venter ordered enhanced surveillance of Goniwe. On June 5, activist preacher Reverend Alan Bosak visited Cradock and spent the night with Goniwe. Security Police Chief Harold Snyman communicated directly to the SSC in a top-secret telex asserting that Goniwe should not be reappointed, a sentiment echoed by Major Eric Venter, the head of Cradock Security Police. On the same day, Deputy Minister of Police Adrian Vlok chaired a meeting at police headquarters where they discussed the fairly quiet situation in Cradock. Reports from Jaap Strydom regarding his May 24 meeting with Matthew Goniwe indicated that the SSC would form a works committee to recommend a course of action to Chairman Vlok by June 12. On June 7, 1985, Major General J. Frederick Johannes from the SSC Secretariat contacted Brigadier van der Westhuizen to discuss Goniwe. Both officers agreed that Goniwe and two others, Fort Galata and Bulelo Goniwe, should be permanently removed from society as a matter of urgency. Meanwhile, General F. J. Van Rensburg Special Works Committee at the SSC, tasked with addressing the Goniwe issue, included Colonel MacDonald of the SEP, who opposed Goniwe's reinstatement and was chaired by Air Force General Peter Johannes Geldenhuys. The secret document evaluated several options for Goniwe: arrest and charge him, detain him without trial, restrict him, find him another position, or allow him to return to education. General Geldenhuys submitted his report on June 12, 1985, but it was edited without his knowledge by General Van Rensburg before being forwarded to cabinet ministers in Cape Town. On the same day, it is believed the minutes remain classified that the SSC held a meeting attended by President P.W. Botha, South African Defence Force Chief Constant Viljoen, Foreign Minister Pik Botha, Justice Minister Kobi Coetzee, Security Police Chief General Johan Coetzee, and Defence Minister Magnus Malan. During this meeting, it was recommended that Goniwe be reinstated, despite objections from the security chiefs. Van Rensburg reported that he presented the signal from van der Westhuizen verbally, although this claim is disputed by others present. Some attendees assert that Minister of National Education Dr. Gerrit Viljoen and Law and Order Deputy Minister Adrian Vlok were debating Goniwe's reinstatement. Subsequent court evidence indicated that General Van Rensburg did not receive the signal until June 17, after the recommendations had been made, although this too is disputed. The SSRC Works Committee undated top-secret report to Vlok presented two options: neutralize Goniwe through security legislation or reappointing him. The security options were deemed ineffective, leading to the recommendation for his reappointment so he could be controlled and disciplined within the teaching profession. On June 13, 1985, a Stratcom policy guideline was sent to Brigadier P.J. Geldenhuys recommending Goniwe's reappointment as headmaster, suggesting he attend orientation courses and be closely monitored with covert restrictions on his extramural activities. On June 14, the Department of Education and Training met with community representatives, assuring them that the situation in schools would stabilize with Goniwe's reappointment. A secret memo dated June 18 indicated that the local Cradock security forces were aware of Goniwe's upcoming reinstatement and were supportive of it. The memo also hinted at the conflict the Department of Education and Training had experienced with the police. Final approval for Goniwe's reinstatement required approval from the minister, discussed on June 28, the day following the disappearance of the four activists. A handwritten note on the document mentioned that the news of a burnt-out car reached the Department of Education and Training on June 29, followed by the news of Goniwe's death on July 3rd. The memo concluded with an instruction to put away these files, please. Van Rensburg played a significant role within the Geldenhuys Works Committee, embodying the mindset of the security community. He received updates and signals, and his name appeared on the revised Geldenhuys report. In court, both Van der Westhuizen and Van Rensburg acknowledged that seeking high authority for the approval of operations involving extralegal activities is a recognized practice in counter-revolutionary warfare. Van der Westhuizen denied any plans or approvals from himself or the EPJMC for the murder of any individual. Considering that the Cradock activists were killed shortly after the Eastern Cape Province JMC proposed an assassination to the SSC Secretariat, it is highly likely that the full SSC, chaired by President P.W. Botha and attended by Nobel Peace Prize winning former South African President F.W. de Klerk, gave their sanction. At the time, F.W. de Klerk was a co-opted member of the council. Following the Cradock murders, Van der Westhuizen, who executed the death warrants, was promoted to commander of the Johannesburg area and later to Chief of Staff of the South African Defence Force Military Intelligence. June 25, 1985, the police commissioner submitted a top-secret report to the Minister of Law and Order regarding the actions surrounding Goniwe. The events surrounding Goniwe prompted mixed reactions. Some sought his reappointment, while others declared it would happen over my dead body. Ultimately, it appears the hit squad emerged victorious. Every Wednesday, Goniwe traveled to Port Elizabeth to report to the UDF leadership. As a UDF organizer, he often traveled in a car provided by the UDF. On June 24, he contacted Derek Swartz in Port Elizabeth to inform him that he would arrive a day later as he needed to address a rally in Cradock on June 26. The security police were aware of his altered plans and monitored the call. It was their practice to notify the Port Elizabeth branch about Goniwe's whereabouts, informing either Snyman or Hermanus du Plessis. On the morning of June 27, Cradock Security Police Chief Eric Finter and two other officers left their office without disclosing their destination. They returned the following day, appearing anxious and secretive. On June 27, 1985, Matthew Goniwe, Fort Galata, Sparrow Mkhonto, and Sicelo Mhlawuli, collectively known as the Cradock Four, departed for Port Elizabeth around 10 a.m. Sicelo, a childhood friend of Matthew, was visiting Cradock for the holidays and decided to join him to catch up on old times. Their car was spotted by police in Cockhouse around lunchtime. That afternoon, Matthew attended meetings with comrades. His final meeting, held at the home of UDF activist Michael Coetzee, wrapped up around 9 p.m. The four left shortly after, at approximately 9:10. After Matthew declined Derek Swartz's invitation to stay overnight, he expressed a desire to return to his family and only planned to stop for the police.